Hello, everybody, or hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, I was able to witness a video on Twitter, and it was really horrific. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll let you in on it. So, if you're looking at your internet and if you heard about the New Zealand shooting, at first, when I first saw the video, they would only show like I think the beginning when the shooter, the guy that's the shooter, when he would drive around and look like he was driving around to find the mosque so that he could commit the massacre. He had looked like he was planning things out, or maybe he already maybe went around the neighborhood. He already plotted out what he was going to do, I'm sure, because he knew where he was going, he knew where to park, he knew where to enter, and it was pretty graphic and pretty horrific. But in the beginning, when I saw it, I said, no, this really can't be happening. So it's easy when you see something like that to think, well, maybe somebody's playing a joke. But then when you see really people that are screaming and yelling and running for their life, and then you see the videos are not fake, and you see the news feed and people talking all over about it, um, then you realize this is not a game, it's real. And I could tell by the way people were pretty much when he went into the mosque shooting, he just commenced the shooting, and he was making sure that every person that he saw, he put a bullet in each one of them. It was pretty graphic, pretty horrific. I had seen carnage before. I've seen shootings up close and personal where I've seen people who have gotten killed or gunned down in the street. And so I knew, I was like, yeah, this is not, it's not a hoax. It's not fake. It's real. And so shortly thereafter, there was another video that it shared, sort of shared the shooter video, but it made it look like it was a hoax, like it was like a video game or it was fake. But you could see that it was real, and this person was voicing over the whole video, and they were explaining how, oh, you see how this person is not, they're not really responding, or they're responding, or you see how they're moving or how they're laying, or they were trying to make like excuses to say that it wasn't a real shooting, that it was, there were certain things in the video that would make you doubt that it was really credible, that it was a real massacre. So they were trying to make it seem as though it was phony, and it was not the case. It was real. It was extremely real. It was extremely graphic. It was extremely horrifying. And so, for those of you, it's the same thing because I remember that used to happen. Like, when there were other tragedies that happened in the past, there would be other YouTube channels where some popular people would see something and they would say it was a hoax, even though it was a real life tragedy that actually occurred. And so it's so crazy how people will make up stories to gain an audience. And so I have this entitled The Reality of Social Media. So I know I'm talking about the New Zealand shooting, and I know with some people, they already know what happened about the tragedy. And then some people are like, oh, well, you know, if it doesn't affect them in their country or their city or their church, it doesn't matter. And so I know that's how some people will think. because that's the way some people's mindset is. If they don't experience, they don't really care. Um, but you should, because for somebody to just do something like that in broad daylight, and it wasn't like at night, it wasn't late at night, it wasn't like early in the wee hours in the morning. It was like in broad daylight, in a place you would think, this would be the least place that you'd have to worry about getting gunned down or killed or your life ending, is in a church. But now you have to wonder, is it even safe to go to a place of worship if that's the kind of thing that you're involved in your community where you stay? And so I think it's really sad, because I even told my mother that before she passed, that I was worried about her going to churches, because she was going to a church she was attending regularly, and she lived in the area where the Charleston shooting, she lived out in the Carolinas where the Charleston shooting happened. And so she said that all of the churches were on alert, and they were going to start to put cameras in churches that didn't have cameras, and they were going to start to have certain type of securities set in place. So they were talking about that, because that was a big thing in the South, and I think it still is now, because of that horrid incident with the people that were in the Charleston area of South Carolina that were murdered and gunned down. And the crazy part about it is, she told me before she passed that the shooter was going to go to another church, but the church doors were locked. And I believe that was not the only church that he was going to kill people. There was another church, and I believe it was an African American church, or a church primarily with African people that attend, and he was gonna gun down church people in there. And there was a copycat shortly thereafter, somebody that saw that shooting, and they saw it and they were enthused by it, and so it made them try to reenact the whole scene over for real. And so people should be concerned about that, because it can happen anywhere. It can happen to people or yourself could be in a place and unsuspecting, and you're thinking, oh, this is a place of worship. And, like I said, I think I said this, that no place really is really safe, anymore. I don't think it really ever was, because nobody's really thinking about having to worry about dying in a church or dying in a sporting event necessarily. Well, of course, now it's on the minds of people because of the different terrorist plots and terrorist attacks and massacres, and the widespread spread shootings that have been occurring. And so I was going to switch gears off of that, and I was going to go into what I've realized on social media, is that, I already knew, and I think other people know this. There's some people that are really popular. They make money on YouTube, they make money on different websites, and some of it is innocent, but I'm noticing some of it isn't. And a lot of times, I guess it depends on what their goal is in mind. And everybody, like I would believe, has agendas, and sometimes the agendas are for doing good and bringing people together, and other times it's for gossip. You'll have channels like that, and then there's people who will try to, they'll try to pick topics or certain, popular events that have happened. And what they'll try to do is they'll try to use it as an excuse to gain popularity. They'll pick a side. It could be politics, it could be celebrity gossip, or it could be um, social political issues that have to deal with race. And it could also be, maybe just social issues or humanity issues. And sometimes people will do some good and they'll bring people together, or they'll bring people together to think collectively and critical think about what their thoughts are, or maybe it'll just be a place for people to talk and vent. And while others, their whole motive behind bringing an audience is to build ratings and to possibly make money off their channel, even if it means inciting fear or inciting violence or inciting hatred among other people. And I've noticed a lot of that has been going on social media. And so social media is extremely powerful, and you can do a lot of good. And just in the same way you can do a lot of good, you can do a lot of harm. And so I guess I'm going to connect this, what I'm saying, to that New Zealand shooting. If you want to get a lot of people riled up, you can pick topics about race, you can pick topics about, political issues and what side of the political fence that you're on, whether you're Republican or you're Democrat or you're a liberal or you're a conservative. Or you can talk about maybe social issues in communities, maybe crime or violence, or you could talk about relationships, and you can even talk about getting races of people together if you're an exclusive individual that wants to deal with only black issues, or you want to deal with only white issues, or you want to deal with social issues having to do with the homeless. And certain populations are protected groups like LGBTQ, and women's rights and different. There's a whole myriad or variety of ideas that you can come up with, and whatever that really gets people riled up, it can really have an impact on your channel. It can also have an impact on people. And I noticed that over the years, in all my years, I've noticed that when people are really passionate about something, some people are talkers and others are both. They can talk about it and they'll actually carry out what it is that they want to do. And so sometimes it's good to have a place to vent because it might be healthy, but it depends on how that healthy is. Is it a good level of healthy, or is it something that is not going to be healthy? It's negative. In the long run, it becomes negative because you carry out an act that could end a lot of lives, or it could start a war or create chaos over the internet. And or you can make up a story because you're really trying to get access to somebody's money. So you make up a lie, and people know how to lie to make people believe things that aren't true, even when they don't have any evidence to show for it nowadays. And so people can be very convincing. Um, and so what I've noticed is that I've paid attention to some of the people that are on social media, on these channels, and on YouTube, and on Patreon, and different other sites. And some people have some really strong opinions, and some people have some really valid points in their opinions, but not all of it has all the time the same, um, how would I say this? It doesn't have the same impact on everyone in the same fashion. So some people can disagree with those opinions and say, I don't believe that this person actually, did this, and I guess I'm a person, I have to see what something, is, and I have to actually visually have evidence or something that, to go on to prove that, you know, um, if feel I see something and I know that, yeah, this is actually happening, you can see it in real time. And, like on Facebook, people are posting horrible videos of committing suicide or slaughtering people or hurting people who are innocent because of their political beliefs or religious beliefs. And that's not out of the realm of possibility. Those are not hoaxes. Those are not fake. Those are real. And for somebody to post videos to say that it isn't real, that it's a hoax, and then to reshare the video is pretty sick. But you got those type of people that are on the internet that do that, and they get a rise out of that because to them, they don't really align themselves with reality. Now, there are some crazy groups that are online who believe that, we're not living in reality. We're living in another realm. There's different people who are part of cults. There's people who are involved in religions that have really strict practices that are misogynistic. They believe women should be in a particular place and males should be in a particular place. There's some people that have motives where they want to uplift only black men and black males. And if you say anything that is contrary or if it makes them feel threatened, they'll put even black women against other black women who want to speak out on women's rights issues or want to speak out on some of the pressing issues that have happened even in the black community. I've noticed that. And so what I've noticed that certain YouTubers, and I'm trying to stay off of name dropping, and some people may be able to figure it out. I've noticed that certain YouTubers who look like they're independent and they're by themselves and they're not working with other YouTubers, they really are. Because all of a sudden they start off like independent and they start off like they're by themselves and they're venting their frustration. Um, for example, you'll have some YouTubers that'll be venting frustration about maybe some social issues in the black community. And later on, as maybe weeks, months, maybe a year or so, some time goes by, their channel begins to get relatively popular. And some people will do some good with that. They'll continue talking about really social issues and some topics that are of interest. Others will use it to try to plot against unsuspecting ears, and they'll say things to get you all fired up, get you riled up, so that really that you can just pretty much send them money. They don't want to bring black unity. They don't want to bring the black community together. They don't want to see that people prosper and get into college or schools or get, careers started or try to build communities. They use topics to try to make you think that that's what they want to do, that they're trying to uncover and expose corruption. But what they want to do is they want to say things you probably already know and probably many other people already know. And then what happens after that is they ask for donations or they ask you to sponsor them or they have someone else that'll pick their channel up. And then if they don't like something that another YouTube person or another person of that is maybe they're talking about similar issues, they don't like something that they say, they attack that person. They'll attack their channel or they'll try to look that person up or they'll try to spar with that person to try to discredit them and make them feel like they're lower than their channel or they're not significant because they don't do the same thing or talk about the same issues in the same way or they don't share the same opinions or maybe they don't reveal themselves, because some people are into revealing themselves. And that, to me, I believe is because YouTube is their job. And so it's easy when you are using social media as your income and your only source of income to profit off of people who are angry and raged about some of the things that are going on in society or whatever, wherever they are at in their life. A lot of people will use that to gain access into the minds of individuals because it's easy to sit behind a computer and to talk about a lot of things. And to, if you are good at voicing opinions, sometimes it's good to sit and, kind of collect your thoughts. But if you're using it so that you can target audiences, so that you can gain access into their psyche and get them to send you money and send you personal favors. Now, if the person chooses they want to do that because they like your channel, they like something about you or what you say, that might be something different altogether. Maybe they kind of, felt that you've grown on them. You share a lot of similarities in what they believe in. But if it's to do harm and your real motive is not really to gain the uniqueness of sincerity with your audience, it's just really to just, like go into their pockets and drain them dry, of all of whatever they can send you, then it's not much to it, except that that person is probably not really sincere about what their motives are. Now, I do know some people will take donations, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And giving money to somebody that maybe you don't give a whole lot of money. You just sometimes will give them money. But I've seen some YouTube people and people from other media sites will get a lot of money from different subscribers. And so I think partly that has to do with them being a full-fledged um, channel where they're actually making a lot of money and profiting off of that channel, and that really is their full-time job. So it's easy for them to, you know, um, you know, some will tell you what they're doing. They're trying to buy equipment so that they can do things better on their channels and come with more content that interests people. Some will be honest and say that, and some will just, they'll pretend and they'll lie and they won't really tell the truth, and they'll pretend like they're independent and that they're, trying to, be on the same page as you, but you know, either at the beginning of their video or at the end of the video, they're trying to siphon money out of people, and they're scam artists and they're not really sincere. And so we've seen a number of people have done that. And so I think it's better for people to be honest and say that they'll accept donations, but to not pressure people to do so. Um, a lot of times I think the reason why people will show themselves is because maybe that's what they don't mind showing themselves. Depends on what topic you're talking about. If it's not something that's going to be too dramatic or whatever, then they might not have a problem showing themselves. Some people are shy. Some people don't want people to see who they are because they want to be private and they want to stay to themselves. Maybe, social media is not their only source of income, so they have a right to privacy and to not reveal who they are. Some people don't have a problem revealing who they are, even if they're not popular and if they have other sources of income, and maybe they don't feel like it's going to impact, where they work. But, you have to be mindful that a lot of people know that sometimes employers places sometimes when they realize that you have really strong views about religion or about culture or about social issues, some people are going to agree and others may disagree with it. And so, some for that reason, you know, look what just happened. You have a shooter, somebody that comes into a mosque and shoots everybody. And so, do you really want to reveal yourself? Because you don't know what level of crazies are out there. And if they'll try to target you or that you say something they don't like, and they try to look for, or search for where you're going to be. Because, on your channel, sometimes you'll say, oh, I'm going to be at such and such at this day, at this date. And if you say that, then what could end up happening is that person could maybe be there waiting for you. I've seen that happen in some videos where people will brag about they're going to be at this restaurant or they're going to be performing or they're going to be, somewhere, and then they want people who follow them on social media to show up so they can meet them there. And that turns out to be, it can be a good thing or it can be a not good thing. It can be a really bad thing, and then people could get hurt, innocent people could get hurt. And so for a lot of those reasons, that's why people won't reveal themselves because of not only privacy, but for safety reasons. And so I've seen some YouTubers who will ridicule other people who don't reveal themselves. And so I think that's wrong. You got your reasons for revealing yourself, others may have their reasons for not revealing themselves. And so maybe they want to stay private. Maybe they know people know what they look like. It doesn't matter to them, Um, I, on either side of the coin, I feel passionate about some of the things that I've talked about. I've talked about a variety of topics. Um, I know some people have listened to my videos. I know some people probably that I've known in the past or the recent past have heard my videos and they didn't like what I said because it wasn't something they personally agree with. But that's life, everybody's not going to agree with the same ideas. And so I have a right, just as they have a right to have an opinion, I have a right to have an opinion about the things that I feel strongly about. And if you don't like that, you don't have to look and listen to what I have to talk about either. So you can go to another video where they only talk about things that you like to hear. So, you have the liberty to do that. Nobody's holding any weapon towards you to say, you must listen to what I say. So I've never been one to try to, you know, um, really, stress donations or ask people for money. I think I did in the beginning. I started out saying if you wanted to, donate, you could, but I really don't really, for some reason, I don't like doing that because it feels like you're begging people. I know other, celebrity YouTube people and social media people will say, don't say begging, but it does feel like you're begging people when you say, oh, if you want to send me a donation, send it to here, blah, 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 blah. And so I try to be realistic. I try to be as honest as possible. And I was listening to this one person who I think they have a channel on many sites like Twitter, YouTube, and Patreon, and Pinterest, and all these other sites. And so this person, I was listening to her, and I actually unsubscribed to her because she said something I did not like. And I'll be honest, and she said something about a topic that I felt strongly about, and I did not like the way she said it because not because it was her, not because of her just her opinion alone. I felt like there wasn't enough evidence for her to come to that conclusion. I feel like this. If you're trying to incriminate somebody and you don't really know them, you don't know a whole lot about them, but you know something of them. Maybe they were somebody you used to like to listen to, or they were popular at one time. And I feel like this, if you don't see any evidence, then you can't really say that that person actually did commit a crime unless you see it. Like the New Zealand shooting, you see that crime. It's all over social media. We see those people getting massacred. You know, videotapes of people having underage women and abusing them. You see there's evidence. Yeah, you can say something's really wrong here. But if you're listening to somebody and they make a video or they, say so and so touched me, but you don't really see any evidence, you only hear it from like only maybe one or two people. And then you got other people that say, oh, nothing happened to me. It's not enough evidence to really incriminate somebody. But for you to get on social media and then say that person did it, but you don't see anything and other people don't see anything, I think, in my opinion, that's wrong. And so some people may know who I'm talking about. But to me, I have to see something to actually know, and it has to be real. I don't mean just see anything. It has to be something really, really hard, concrete evidence, and you know, and fact, not just facts, because some people can say, "Okay, I'm going to get the stats. I'm going to get the facts." You don't know where those really came from. You know, I kind of feel like I have to see something, it almost like it has to be right before my eyes to actually know that, oh yeah, this is what's happening. This is happening right now. We're all seeing this. Like we all saw when 9/11 happened. It was all over the news. Some people were making videos saying that wasn't real. But yet you've seen the news feeds, you've seen people saying that they lost loved ones, and they have every year people come out to uh, call the names of the people who perished in 9/11 in Times Square. And so they read that every September 11th to remind people of what horrible terrorist attack occurred. And so we see that. We didn't have to be in New York, but we're looking, all of us see the same thing on TV, on the news, on CNN, on every major station there is. You see it happening. If I see a videotape of the same guy touching different young girls, yeah, okay, he did it. you know, but if I can't see this guy touching little boys and he didn't make videotapes. And I'm hearing two guys who wait years after they said that they nothing happened to them. Now they changed their story because maybe if we can't get money now, we can get money out of the house or the estate. Okay, now we're gonna make up a story and we're gonna make it look real. We're gonna get clips of this person, and we're gonna try to compile things and conversations, and we're gonna try to sway people's perceptions so that they can assume that this person is a predator. And so I just don't buy it. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. So I have to see if there were like explicit phone conversations between you and that individual and they were sexual, and it was a man talking to a child and trying to persuade them to touch them or sleep with them or do little things, then maybe I might be a little bit, you know disturbed to the point to where I might think, wait a minute, that's not. The other thing is that I don't understand how, in my mind, how parents can allow their kids to go with strangers. I don't understand that and feeling comfortable with that. You know, shouldn't people like that be held accountable as well in acts of, you know, coercion, because that plays a role in it. And what do they get out of it? To me, the only thing I can come to a conclusion is money. You know, it all seems like money to me. And so I feel like there's so many different agendas on social media and that people aren't really telling the truth. And, I mean, look at the scandal that happened at USC and probably other institutions, I'm sure. It isn't just USC. There were other institutions. There was Wake Forest, UCLA. There were a number of institutions, Stanford, Yale, where people were cheating on SAT and ACT tests. They were hiring people to cheat for them. They were giving people money to show up for the test, to take the test, or either grade the test, to score them higher. They were giving money, or, and they said the legal way to get your kid into some of those schools is to buy a building. If your parents are super rich and they buy a building or they donate money, they donate money to buy a building being built or some construction, fancy construction. Your kid has a guaranteed, entrance into the college campus and maybe a free ride possibly. I do know somebody that attended USC. Their father was a professor there, and they got free education there because the father was a professor, and it wasn't cheating or anything. And so, actually, several people that went to USC I know, and they didn't use any of those methods that I'm seeing these other people. But I wasn't surprised that that was going on. When I heard it, I knew some of that was going on. Um, and I think some of my people, colleagues, people that I know, knew that was going on because there were certain things that didn't just sit right with everybody, every student. And so you have some people who wouldn't show up to class, and they show up to class on the day of a final or finals week. And then all of a sudden, how can they ace this exam and pass the class? Somebody has to be giving them the answers or something like that. Some people can do that, but that's not everybody. So, it's either here or there. But now all of the truth is uncovered, so to speak, for some people who were not really knowing about it. But I don't know. I just wouldn't feel right, going to a university knowing, everybody can see you. They've seen you on social media saying that you don't like school, and you're posting that, and everybody knows your family is rich and they paid for you to cheat. I would quit the school. I would go into something else because everybody's gonna see you. They know your face now. You know, like I said, some people have their reasons they don't want to reveal themselves for those particular reasons, and so that pretty good example right there. You're revealing yourself on social media, saying that you hate school or you don't like school or you don't really care about school, whatever the case may be, have you? And then turns out that your parents are in this huge scandal and your face is plastered all over not only social media but on CNN, on Yahoo, on AOL, and all of the news feeds. Not a good look. But anyway, I just felt like I noticed that there was some channels too where they obsess on religion or old religions or religions to try to indoctrinate people as well. So you got to be careful because if you're not into that or if that's not your angle, then you might not want to really hang around or listen or stay on those channels for too long because their goal is to try to indoctrinate you as a cult um, group and get you to believe in not only what their political views are, but their religion And so some people, that's what they're aiming to do, is to build a cult following. And so I've noticed a lot of that is going on online. And I feel like it's a reflection of what's happening in this time today with all of the discord and the anger that is displayed out there um, in the world. You know, a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of doubt and a lot of distrust in people. And the government, of course, always takes a hit because there's so many people that question a lot of things. But however, I notice it's not just here in America, it's also outside of America. And so I guess I can go into this since I'm on here talking about realities of social media. Well, I was viewing a documentary. Of course, there's so many great documentaries, and some of them are not that great. They don't show things that you want to see in particular. But this really happened as well. Now, this is not here in the States. This was in Mexico. And I was looking at a documentary. It was called The 43. I believe it was called The 43. And it was about these students that were murdered, and they were on these buses. Now, I'll just say what I saw. And so anybody that's from the Latin community probably knows about this, but it was so creepy because there are 43, it looked like 43 students. It looked like a boys' school. It was it's called the school of normality, or it looked like it was a school for boys, like maybe a boarding school or something like that in Mexico, I'm assuming. Well, anyway, there were a lot of angry parents, a lot of protests, a lot of intrigue and mystery behind as to what happened. And at first, they made it seem as though the bodies were burned and that they located charred bones, and they only had a match of one body out of 43 bodies. But in turn, they sent another investigative team. It looked like it might have been from America, who were translators, and they were interpreters as well. And so they said that the bodies weren't burned, the 43 students, and it's beyond 4 years now. And to this day, they remember that horrible incident where all those people were murdered. And now they've got missing bodies. They don't know where the bodies are. I guess the parents couldn't lay their children's bodies to rest. And so it was pretty sad, and it was scary, and it was creepy, because how do you destroy and hide off 43 bodies? You know, and so the question that came into play was the government in Mexico. I think Pineda was the president at the time, and he eventually resigned. There's a new president in Mexico. And so sometimes I'll watch, Mexican shows and stuff like that because I know some Spanish or something or other. I'm not going to brag about it, but I even know what the words are. I read it. Um, and so I kind of can relate to some of it. But the thing is, what was creepy is that they hadn't found all the bodies. And so really it looked as though they hadn't found none of the bodies really. So I don't know. I hadn't looked into what the new developments are on that. But what I did notice is that the people were distrusting of their Mexican government. And so I was thinking to myself, and I was like, that could be along with some of the other violence and some of the stuff that's happened. I think the reason why they have a distrust in the government because of the cartel activity in the military and the police, law enforcement in Mexico might be all working together in collusion when it comes to things like that. And the way I see the video, it looked like that maybe the military or military police in Mexico were working alongside the government, and they were protecting the government was protecting them. The president was saying, oh, the bodies were in fact burned. it was Pineda back then, and he was saying it, I don't know why they're saying that the bodies weren't burned, you know, and he kept vehemently confessing that he felt that the bodies were burned and that the rain kind of, did something to the bodies where they were unable to, I guess, test for DNA to look, get like verified proof that of to identify whose body was whose bones belonged to whom. Because I think the whole thing was is a lot of parents were enraged because first of all they wanted to know where their bodies were of their sons, their loved ones, what happened, who did it, and then the who did it, why are they protecting the who did it? And they didn't feel like they trusted that government. And it reminded me of what happens here in America, how a lot of people are distrusting of things that have happened here and that are still happening, the corruption, how there's police brutality in, black communities, how people can just get gunned down by the cops and the cops don't get punished for it. They don't even get a fine. They may not even get suspension. They do their little bullshit investigation, and the next thing you know, the cop gets to walk. And a lot of black people are not trusting of that. They feel like somebody's behind it and pulling the strings, and they kind of say what goes and what doesn't go for certain communities based on race. And so I wouldn't doubt that. And so I feel like a lot of these, a lot of these structures that they put in place in these states, there is a lot of corruption that is going on. I can honestly say that I do believe that does happen, and I feel like a lot of this stuff is cropping up all at once, and a lot of people are beginning to see some of the horrible realities or the harsh realities that there's some, people that you wished you could trust or you thought you could trust, and you can't. Even in the celebrity world, people who will be so easy to, they start off and they say that you're, somebody that is an idol or a friend to them or dear to them, and then they turn around and then they make a movie about you to discredit you or to make you look like you're a monster. And so there's so many things going on. I'm not really surprised anymore. And two, I was reading another article where they were talking about HUD. And so I was going to look for the article, but I'm not. I'm just going to talk about it in brief and then I'll let this whole video go. It's so many crazy things happening that I would mention, when I had talked about a video about some of the other things that were going on. I said, I, when it had to do with the USC and the university scandal, and and I mentioned USC because I lived, I still don't live that far from USC. Um, some of the cheating and all that stuff that had, but then some cheating. It's a lot of cheating. Then there was the whole thing of um, like math, people hiring people to do their math work and cheating on that, and hiring somebody to take the test for them or give them the answers. That was going on. But I'm not surprised that any of this is happening. When I realized what, all was going on, I saw an article and I said, wow, I already knew this before I even saw the article about the housing market. I'm gonna try to say this, but try to say it in a way where I don't know how to say things that won't rub people the wrong way, because sometimes you can say things even in a nice way and they get upset. So, if you get upset, oh well, this is what I see. Okay, so here in the Los Angeles area, I'm not afraid to say I live in Los Angeles. So, because I'm not a bad person. I'm not looking to hurt anybody, and I'm not trying to start anything. But what I've noticed in the housing market, this is what I've noticed is that and I've had other people kind of share their issues in the housing market here in LA. For one, it's really expensive. And it tends to be really expensive in like the choice areas, like if you want to live like maybe Hollywood, or if you want to live like downtown LA, there's these luxury high rises and lofts. If you want to live like in places that are, you know, in the earlier 9,000, 9,007, 9,002, and all that. But like when you start to get into South LA, like north of LA, is higher, higher rents, higher housing market. But when you get in West LA, when you get in South LA, the rents everywhere seem like they have kind of risen. They're trying to get rent control back for a lot of places. Some places don't have rent control in LA. South LA doesn't have rent control as of yet. But they're still supposed to follow suit. We're going up like 3 or 4% every year on an increase, if that. And then usually when it's capped off, they try not to go up. Some areas don't have rent control, some do. But the growing fear is that there's going to be a skyrocketing rent and for homeowners that live closer to the stadiums, like that their taxes are going to be hiked because of that. And so a lot of people, when I went to some home buyer meetings, they were asking those questions. They said, oh, it's not going to impact it that much. And now I'm reading where they say it is going to impact it because of the fact that they're building the stadium and they're probably almost not that far off from being done with it. So Inglewood, they're having a new stadium. I think it's a football stadium. And so anybody that lives in that proximity or close to it, they're if they're a homeowner, it's gonna affect their taxes that they pay. And that's included when you're a homeowner and you're paying for your house. You have to pay taxes on the house and the area that's around it. So and what amenities it has to offer, of course. And so the other thing I noticed is that I noticed there's certain houses that in South LA, when they're for sale, they'll have it in Spanish. Now, it feels as though what I've known about housing, even in like Section 8 housing, they'll have these little programs where they'll say where you can't steer people or you can't deny people of housing and you can't have signs that are posted in a particular language because what that's saying is you only want that particular group to move in that neighborhood or that house or that apartment or whatever. That's how the houses are. I've noticed some houses will have like Century 21, it'll be in English or whatever. But then I've noticed some houses will have like for sale, and then the name will be like so ethnic, like a Spanish name. And then they'll point to the house, and then it'll be in a neighborhood where there's all Hispanic. And in a way, it kind of makes you feel if you're not Hispanic or you're not Latin, you feel intimidated, like, oh, they don't want me to move in that neighborhood. Because you may be the only black family or the only white family in this Latin neighborhood, and most of the people are Latin. And the person that is the real estate or the realtor that is showing you the house, it looks, the atmosphere looks as though they really want a Latin family to move in those houses. And they want Latin people to become homeowners. And they kind of like, motivate them to try to want to do that. But however, like when it's, too, I notice the other thing is that in South LA, some of the houses are not really that great. There'll be two bedrooms, one bathroom, two bedrooms, one bath, two bath, or and then the house won't be in that great of condition because they've been around. They're older houses. They've been here for a number of years, and so they might have issues with termites, rats, things like that. And so you have to be careful. Some houses are short sale houses. Some houses are prorated probate houses, probate houses, and then I noticed there's some places where they'll have sites where they say they're auctioning off a house, but you don't know what you're going to move into. And so it's like buyer beware. You really don't know. And so, like, I saw this one house I was looking. Sometimes I look at the housing market, and it had a tent over the whole house. They said, "Oh, it had termite extermination on such and such a date." And so, what I've noticed is some houses they'll try to sell you real cheap, but it could have like termites or something might be wrong with it. Eventually, the house you're gonna put a lot of money into that house because it needs a lot of work. And so, two, I've also noticed that houses over in the South LA area, the south of LA, are different. They look different than houses on the north side of LA. North side of LA, you see more craftsman style houses. Over here on the south side of LA, you'll see houses. They don't look. All of them don't look craftsman style. Some of them look like they're just stucco, and they're not really that great. Some of them are nice if depends on the homeowner who keeps them up and whatnot. But then I noticed that um, when people don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of resources, they can't afford to fix their home. The home sort of goes to pot. And I don't think a lot of people realize that when you have a home, you're responsible for all the repairs. And you have to have money left over to try to be prepared for those emergencies or unexpected emergencies that might happen. So there's a lot of thought process, a lot of planning that goes into that. So it's not as easy as people try to make it sound. So they have all these home buyer programs and classes and stuff to try to pump people up to move in these little homes. But I don't think they really give all of the definite details of what is involved unless you go to one of these classes where they just kind of list out all of the ins and outs of it and you really get a thorough understanding. You try to read it for yourself. But most people just want to get a house. They don't even think about what's all involved in it. What neighborhood you move into, what are the neighbors like, what are the crime stats in the area, does it change the value of your home? And like what I was saying, that they're building certain stadiums in Los Angeles and in other places, if they're building certain things, venues, that will that impact your taxes on your house in the long run. And so I don't think people realize that. But so I noticed I was looking at an article and it was under HUD. So there was a scam going on where all these people that were on HUD, they were somehow getting contracts on these HUD houses. And I think the HUD houses are like urban development, housing urban development, where their houses, they're low income houses for low income people who want to be homeowners. And so this person was getting all these kickbacks. They were getting tickets to games, trips. These people they were working with along with HUD. Somehow they were involved in HUD and they were getting they were cheating. They were doing things, they were scamming the HUD program. And it's been going on for I think a number of years. It might even still be going on. They're just now that they've uncovered some of that, they're trying to be clever about it. Not too clever because I was looking at the article and they said there's some people that they were going to terminate from the HUD program Well, they weren't people that are living in the houses, but people who run the HUD actual urban development program and are supposedly they were giving, kickbacks to certain people and money was involved. And so there's been some lying and some deceit. And so people who really want to be homeowners are kind of swindled out of opportunities or they're never given opportunities. Opportunity is never set before them because somebody's, buying up homes or doing things with it and, profiting off of it. Behind closed doors, they're doing their own little transactions and they're getting rewarded for it in little ways. And so a lot of things are going on. And so I had mentioned, I said that I thought that something funny is happening in the California housing market because I feel like only certain houses, there's certain realtors that kind of appeal to certain ethnic groups of interest. And then I've noticed that, they have names that attract certain people because they really want a certain people to move in that neighborhood and they don't want, blacks to become homeowners or they don't want, some people are like that. They won't tell you, they don't want you to rent in their housing complex. They want people that don't have kids or they want people who aren't gay or they want people who aren't black. For whatever reason, it's the same thing I think in the housing market. It's just that they have to be careful about not saying things, but it's what they do and what they show you. And so the signs kind of give you a cue that, oh, okay, he seems like he's a Mexican realtor and it's in a Mexican neighborhood and all the neighbors are Mexican. So the Mexican people think, okay, I want to be a homeowner, so I'm going to live over there, you know. And then black people see that and they're like, oh, who's in the neighborhood? And then they see nobody in the neighborhood looks like them. And they're like, uh-oh. And then, the realtor, he doesn't look like he's that interested in selling you the house, or he makes an excuse. Well, so that's I think what I call steering. They kind of don't want you to live in certain streets or certain neighborhoods or in certain houses because they want a choice ethnic group to live in a certain neighborhood or housing. They're trying to, empower certain groups of people and others they're trying to discredit or make them feel devalued. And so, with that being said, I'm going to let the video go, but I've noticed a lot of chaos has gone on over time. I noticed too, like, even in certain areas, like, if there's people that are poor, they can be from any background. And relatively they have some of the same issues, but they might be from a different culture, but they share similar frustrations. If it's about housing, if it's about, not being able to have like, health care, things like that. Um, Even though we're like maybe we don't have the same religion or we don't have the same culture or we are not the same race, we relatively have some of the same social issues we're dealing with. So along economic lines, if you would say. So what I've noticed is that on social media you got a lot of bullies too. People that target individuals. They don't like something you say. You don't agree with their religion. You don't agree with their views, or their head is big because they got 2.3 thousand subscribers, 3 million subscribers. Whatever. I noticed too. I noticed there's one person that what they would do is they put 64 million were watching, and they would put it underneath their video to grab the attention of people so you would click on it and then you would listen to the person speak. But every time they hear him speak, people would like to hear him speak. But when he said something, things that were real controversial that people rub people the wrong way, they stopped subscribing to him and then they found out he was a scam artist. And so pretty much what he was doing was is he would rally a lot of black people together and get them to agree on certain social issues that really kind of are hot button topics with us as a whole. And then once he'd get on certain issues that would kind of divide black people, no, I don't agree on that. I don't agree on that, but I agree on the one initial thing he talked about. Then, in the end of his speech, he would ask for donations, money, and the only way to get him to come and do anything in a community, you have to offer him a lump sum of money. And he would proclaim how he was going to make changes and he was going to build all these things for black people. And I haven't seen none of that yet. And black people were seriously giving him some real heavy cash, y'all. They were breaking off the bread. They were giving him like big money. He was getting so much money he was able to buy a house with it. Pretty much. He could buy him a house. If I was him, I would stop doing what I was doing because I think some people wanted to sue him because he had drawn such an audience. I haven't really seen him since. I mean, he still kind of goes on the internet every now and then, but he's not as big as he used to be. But you got to really watch these people nowadays because a lot of people are not really in this for what you would think they are. A lot of people are very, very deceiving on social media. Now, like I said, I have to actually see something to really say, okay, yeah, this is happening. It's the same thing. If you say you're going to open up a school or if you're going to build something in a community to try to benefit people of color, then if I see it, then I can say, okay, they were trying. But then, too, you got to also realize that there's going to be backlash because if things don't go well, some people might even actually attempt to open up things. But if it flops, you're going to hear the complaints. So you got to be ready for it when it comes. Or the congratulations if it works out. So it depends. I just think people have to be careful about who they follow on these sites. And so I noticed that on Twitter, that horrible video they were saying about the killings, they were saying, okay, please don't share. And I had a strong curiosity because my son, he was telling me, oh, I just saw a killing on Facebook. And it was in a Muslim mosque, and this guy, he walked in and he just started shooting up the place and shooting, killed all these people. I'm like, what happened? So my son, he actually saw when the shooter had was filming it live. And so that grew my curiosity because I couldn't believe it. It didn't hit me until afterward. I said, I wonder, then I heard all these people and these news feeds talking about, oh, we were trying to scrub the social media and we were trying to erase those videos. They didn't do a good job because I was able to find that video, and I'm not going to tell you where. I was able to locate that video and watch it to the whole entirety, and it was horrifying, completely horrifying. And so, with that in mind, you have to be careful of these people nowadays because you don't know what their mindset is, what their agendas are, what their true intentions are. And a lot of times I notice that people get on these sites thinking that people are really for their community, but they're really not. They're black like you, yeah, but that doesn't mean they have to really like you or be for you. Therefore, building up their income, you know, profiting off of you and your anger. And so if you're angry enough to, you know, if you're in a oppressed group where you're going through so much, there's so many odds stacked against you, people will hone in on that and take advantage of it. And I feel that's what's been going on a lot lately is lies, cheating, people trying to get over on each other and take advantage of things. And they're using even platforms to do it. And so some of this is a good thing to have social media, while on the other hand, it can be a bad thing for others. You know, it could do a lot of grave danger and or show you the evil that is out there. You can see it in real time, and that's the horrible reality of social media. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening.